Hi everyone, today I wanted to talk a bit about security policy projects and how to create them to manage both scan execution policies and scan results policies for a project or a group of projects, and then how to use the same policy project for different sets of projects or groups. So as you can see here with the documentation, and I will put the link to the documentation in the description of the video as well, but you can see that once you have created a security policy project, you can use that same policy project with multiple projects. You can also create security policy projects and have them enforced at the group level. So here for security policy project C, we can share that with or link that to group A and group B. Once the security policy project is linked to a specific project or group, then those policies, both scan execution and results policies that are defined in the policy YAML file in the security policy project, will then enforce those policies at the project or all projects within the group that the policy project is linked to. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to define these. Here I have a scan policy demo group. And here I have a subgroup with some projects in it and then an individual project at the main group level. So I want to start with our individual project and define security policies for this Simply Notes app. So we'll go and start there. Under the Secure tab, we have a Policies menu. We can now go there and create a set of policies. Now you can create a project manually and edit the YAML file, or add a YAML file and edit it directly to define whatever policies you want. But to get started in a simpler way without having to figure out the YAML syntax, we can use the UI and create the policy project. It will automatically create the YAML for us here. So I'm going to create a scan results policy to start off. And I'm just going to give it a name. So we're going to say, let's say SAS scan results approval. And so we'll select a security scan for SAST. Just select SAST here. Runs against all protected branches and finds any vulnerabilities. So you could specify how many vulnerabilities. If it finds any vulnerabilities with a specific severity, we're going to only specify critical in this case, but you can choose which severities or which statuses the vulnerabilities are in as they're found. If it finds a critical vulnerability, then we are going to require, in our case, one approval, but you can change that to more than one from a specific set of people or a group of people. So you can define a group and add members directly to that group, and then anyone within that group could approve. In this case, I'm just going to use an individual user, and I'm going to set to my user account. We're going to configure this with a merge request. Before we do, notice the YAML preview. This is the YAML file that's going to get created in a new policy project for us. So when we configure with a merge request, we're going to notice that a new project is actually created. It's called the same name as the project that we're creating the policy for because we're using the UI, and then dash security policy project. Okay, so that's the default naming convention for the project when you use the UI to create the policies. Now with this merge request, we're just making sure that we are happy with the YAML that was created. Okay, and this YAML was generated automatically through those UI options that I chose. You'll notice that this is a policy.yaml file in a .gitlab/security policies subfolder. If we're happy with that, we can go ahead and merge. And once we have that policy file defined in our main branch, that policy will now take effect for the project that we have defined it for. So if we go back to our scan policy demo and look at our Simply Notes app again, so this is the project we started in where we defined the policies. So under secure policies, now we will see that there is a a SAS scan results approval policy that has been defined. That's the one we just created. And if we look at edit policy project, we notice that this application project is linked to our new project that was created to hold the policies. So Simply Notes app security policy project was the project that was created to hold the YAML for the policy that we defined. Now, if we go in and add additional policies or modify the existing policies here, it will continue to update that YAML file via a merge request, just as we saw with the initial merge request when that policy project was first created. So that's great. That gives us a nice UI, clean way to define a set of policies to get us started. And those policies are now active for our Simply Notes application. But what happens if we want to use the same policies for different projects? Well, let's take a look at that. Underneath our web application teams, we have two different web apps. So we could go in and say, okay, for web app 1, we want the same policies to be enforced as the Simply Notes app policies. So here under the secure menu, policies, we can now go ahead and edit our policy project directly. Notice there is not a security policy associated yet to our web app 1. We can go in though and now take a look and look for our Simply Notes app. I have too many Simply Notes apps. Let's do it by path. I should have called it something different. So let's do 2023 demos. And then we will do our security policy. Oh, where are we? Too many. Scan policy demo is here. So under our scan policy demo, this is our security policy project that we want. That took a minute, but that's okay. This was the security policy project we just created for our Simply Notes app a few moments ago. Now, if you are going to use the same policy project for multiple different development projects, you probably want to name it something different. So go in and rename that project to something more generic so that it is clear that that's a security policy for not just one project, but a set of projects that you're applying it to. In any case, we can see that the security policy project was successfully linked, and that same SAS scan results approval that we had defined for our Simply Notes app policies is now also in effect for web app 1. So that's great news. When we go in and we modify these policies, just be careful, because if you add a policy here or modify the existing policies, it will be changing that same policy project. So any projects that are linked to that specific policy project, those security policies will be changed for all projects. So be a little bit careful. In general, it's great to have, your security policy projects in a different structure in terms of group outside of your development apps, with permissions that only the appropriate people that are supposed to be defining security scans are able to modify those policy projects. Now I want to talk about a third use of a policy project here, and that is setting the policy project at an entire group level instead of an individual project level. Before I do that, I'm just going to avoid confusion, go ahead and let's see if I can remove this. Okay, so unlinking a security project removes all the policies, that's fine. So now we're back to our clean state with our web app 1, where there are no policies defined or enforced for this specific project. What I want to do now instead is say, okay, the same policies that we defined for our Simply Notes app, we want to apply to all of the web application teams. So we can apply the scan policy project at the group level instead of an individual project level. So here under secure, I'm going to go back to policies, and now we're in our web application teams, which is our group level. And now I'm going to edit the policy project here instead. And again, it's going to take me a minute to find it, but we'll do 2023 demos, security policy. Let's see if it finds it. That's security policy demo, and here is our security policy project within that demo group. Now we're going to save that. Now we see the SAS scan approval rule that we had defined in that policy project, and it is applied to the group level. If we go to an individual project now, let's go to Web App 2. We haven't looked at that project yet. And go to the policies menu there, we're going to see that the SAS scan results approval is defined as a policy, and we're going to see where it's inherited from. So we know that the policies are now set at the group level instead of the individual project level. Generally speaking, depending on how you have your projects organized in GitLab, wherever it makes sense, it's going to be easier to maintain policies when you apply them at the group level for all projects within that group. Clearly, if you have some weird group structure where you have different kinds of projects with different security needs within the same group, that's not going to be possible, and then you would use the individual project policy linking instead. I hope this helps. Thanks everyone for your time.